Okay, this video is on cellular respiration. This is the process that gets paired with photosynthesis. So this is the process that converts chemical bond energy from the organic molecules that's made in photosynthesis, or maybe things that we consume, into a usable form in the cell called ATP. This occurs in the mitochondria of the cells, the powerhouse of the cell, we often call it. So this process is fairly complex, has lots of different processes built within it. And it starts really with the organic molecule. Most commonly we'll use the molecule glucose that enters the cell. When it enters the cell, the first process, glycolysis, occurs. This produces 2 ATP molecules, which isn't really a lot in the grand scheme of the entire process. Once glycolysis occurs, basically it splits the molecule in half into 2 pyruvate molecules. And at that point, 2 different things can occur. The first is if there's oxygen present. The other one is without oxygen. So if there's oxygen present, we call it aerobic respiration. If there's no oxygen present, we call it anaerobic respiration. Under aerobic respiration, there's 2 processes, and this is really where the ATP comes from. The electron transport chain and the Krebs cycle. The ETC, or the electron transport chain, makes 34. The Krebs cycle makes 2. Without oxygen, it's much harder for our body to use the glucose that's coming in and to produce this ATP. But we can do it in 2 different ways. One is the production of ethanol and CO2. That's usually in microorganisms like yeast, or the lactate process, or the buildup of lactic acid, which if you're an athlete, you're probably pretty familiar with that when you get sore from doing running and activities. So I'm going to focus on that left half of that chart here. Without oxygen, this is the less efficient model of using glucose to produce ATP. And you'll see why here in a second. Glucose, again, undergoes glycolysis. That's where the ATP is formed. Pyruvate then is transferred into this fermentation. That's the anaerobic, or the without oxygen processes. Lactic acid buildup occurs there during fermentation. But at this point, what it does, our cells, they allow for more glycolysis to occur. So if you think of this entire cycle here, we're getting 2 ATP molecules every time we go under this cycle. Lots of lactic acid buildup. That's, again, without any oxygen being burned, without any oxygen being used. The other side of the equation is more efficient. This is with oxygen. So again, glucose comes in, glycolysis occurs, 2 ATP is formed. Pyruvate goes down this chain of things. It goes into aerobic respiration, that's the oxygen part, into the Krebs cycle. The Krebs cycle, not too important that you know what that cycle is, just understand that 2 ATP is made during that cycle. And then we get to the electron transport chain, which produces 34 ATP molecules. So from that chain, then we get a bunch of CO2 and water as a byproduct. So we're taking glucose, which is C6H12O6, and we're changing it into carbon dioxide and water. So that process, when we break those down, that's where we get the ATP, the usable chemical energy in our cells from. So the overall equation for cell respiration, again, is this. You take in the glucose, that's C6H12O6 that we just saw. We combine that with 6 parts of oxygen. So we need 6 oxygen molecules. We breathe that in from the air. We take glucose, which is a sugar. We break that down into carbon dioxide. We get 6 of them. We get 6 water molecules, but we get 38 cell energy molecules as well, that ATP from it. So this is a really good process. And then we exhale, we breathe out carbon dioxide. We also breathe out some water, and then we also go to the bathroom, so we get rid of water that way as well. Now, our cells can break down other molecules like fats, proteins, and other carbohydrates. It's just that we commonly use glucose for this model. If we use a fat molecule, we'd produce a lot more CO2 and water, and actually a lot more energy as well, because fats contain a lot of chemical stored energy. That concludes the talk on cell respiration. Make sure you go on, watch this video.